What up? What up? What up? Thank you so much for tuning in to this, I think I want to say 10th episode of the Backwards K Baseball Podcast. My name is Chris Asbrock, and I am your host today. And of course, I'm joined by my co-host today, Scott Kaiser. Scott, my man, how you doing, buddy?
What's going on, Chris? I'm doing all right. Not on vacation like you, so
Well,
I'm doing all right.
I might have to. I guess if I could, I could always. I don't even know if it'll work. I thought about turning my computer that way you guys could see the beautiful Atlantic Ocean right now on the beach, but I'm not an asshole like that, so I won't do that to you.
That's fine. The description will do.
I am one, but it's just we'll keep it we'll keep it classier in terms of that. But
well, I appreciate the dedication, my man, doing it on vacation. Because if it was me, I know I would have heard you're doing what on vacation? I'd be like, absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I'm sitting there and I'm like, you know what, we do it at 8:00. What the hell? Why not? I've figured worst case scenarios. I'm a few margaritas deep, and it is what it is. We'll go from there. But beats me from having to go shopping with the wife and boys. So I'm good with it. I'd rather talk baseball anyway.
There you go. Yes. Checking in the comments section early. Hello, Matt Barr, and hello, Rexamillion. Appreciate y'all for joining us this first episode in June. Let's get things started, Chris, shall we?
Yes, let's do it. Well, first off, I want to say congrats to my Mason Comets there. Regional champs as they head to the state Final Four. They take on Perrysburg. Mason knocked off Moeller, the number one team in the state, on Friday night, 3-0. Michael Belo throws a no-no in the regional championship, so good on him. But I just want to say congrats to Coach Bly and the Mason Comets. Awesome job there, and hopefully, let's bring home a ring there. So, want to give that quick shout out. Other than that, literally last week we get done with the show. We get the news, and it's like it couldn't have happened, in typical Angel Hernandez fashion. He screws it up and doesn't do it in time for our show. But the news came out. Angel Hernandez, the incredibly loved Major League Baseball umpire, announced that he is retiring from umpiring. Well, I don't even think he really even did that, but he was behind the plate and on the field for games. But announced he is retiring, and wow. Good riddance, I guess you could say, because I couldn't stand the dude. Was awful. But he wasn't well liked by many people, and you can listen to a lot of the people inside the game who are not upset, to say the least, that Angel Hernandez is retiring. Scott, what are your thoughts on the lovely Angel Hernandez and his retirement?
Well, yeah, like you mentioned, it was minutes after we ended the show last week that we found out that Angel Hernandez was retiring effective immediately. And this is one of those cases where we've known his name for entirely way too long. Angel Hernandez has been a more or less running joke since I was a kid. That's how long Angel Hernandez has been around baseball and umpiring. He's been umpiring for over 30 years. And, it goes back a long way. As a kid, I knew the name Angel Hernandez because of the terrible calls that he made. And again, when you know an umpire's name or an official's name for really just about any reason in sports, it tends not to be for a good reason. And Angel Hernandez is probably now, well, he was at least before Joe West, stepped away. He had been one of the top guys in baseball as far as guys who make blown calls. So happy day to see Angel Hernandez go. Kind of celebrated a lot last week because it was really unexpected. It was one of those things where a regime just falls, or I imagine that's what it felt like when a war was suddenly over back before communication was almost instantaneous, when you just find out and you just go into celebration mode. Like,
okay.
Man. So, not sad to see him go. Happy that baseball has now gotten one umpire better as far as, having the umpires cross legs. But now it's time that we get a couple of the other guys that are like, there's a couple of guys that
CB
are now,
Buckner.
I was gonna say
Goes on your back, my man.
on the clock. I think CB Buckner takes the baton from Angel Hernandez and becomes public enemy number one as far as umpires that gotta go now that we got Joe West and everything. But how about that? Being known for being horrifically bad at your jobs, I think it's pretty safe to say that Angel Hernandez would make just about anybody who's ever watched a baseball game make their Mount Rushmore for bad umpires, because it wasn't like he favored a team, a player, anybody. My man had bad calls across the games he called: National League, American League, big moments, World Series. I mean, you name it. Angel Hernandez was at the center of some of the most horrific calls in baseball history. He's definitely on the Mount Rushmore of bad umpires.
And that's, and you bring up a good point there. And that's one thing I do respect about him is he sucked unilaterally. Like there was it was just overall, he was just bad. And that, and I guess I'm okay with them. And with that, I guess if I want an umpire to suck, they better suck overall, to cover all their bases. And he did that. He was, he had a short fuse, would quickly throw guys out. You had a couple of the classics with Bryce Harper losing his mind on the check swing. Kyle Schwarber absolutely coming unhinged last year, which was incredible. I love that kind of stuff. And I love seeing guys, call out these umpires in terms of that. And that's what, the Schwarber one was, I want to say that was was that the most recent, I think, of a player losing it, on an umpire like that?
Yeah, I think that was one of the more recent ones where you had them just lose their absolute mind and it take a little while for them to calm down. And Schwarber being one of the guys who's more mild-mannered, you don't see him lose his temper all that often or get into confrontations. It's things like that and moments like that over Angel Hernandez's career. He brought out the worst in some of the most docile or mild-mannered people in the game with his calls.
Yeah, and that's incredible. I mean, when you're pissing off guys who literally don't get fired up over anything, that's telling you everything you need to know about an umpire. And that's what oh man, he was brutal. And it's funny because
Rex Emilian saying that he was an equal opportunist.
That
is a great way to describe
bingo.
How he was with calling games and his discretion with players across the league.
And it was funny, some of the funniest stuff was, like almost immediately after it was announced that he had retired, it was, you go on X and you see, hey, in memory of, Angel Hernandez's career, here are the top 10 worst calls he's made. And the funny part is like none of the lists were the same. Like they were all bad. I mean, that dude you name it. If it was a bad call to be made, he was going to make it. And he did that. He did that aplenty. But I did hear some things, I'm not, I'm going to bash the guy and his career here, but apparently he was a really good dude. And, if that's the case, good on him. Hopefully he, post-career, really does a lot. I want to say, I thought I heard he did a lot of philanthropy and stuff like that. And if that's the case, good on him. But as for baseball, good riddance, dude. Like you are, you're not going to be missed by any means.
Well, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to celebrate some of that stuff because we talked about it on Craft Brewed Sports, where it's just like, yeah, he's still a human being, and for the most part, you would like to assume that he's heard the things said or about him over his career, over the years, and that just being a human being, that it affects him on some level. So you're like, okay, being a fellow human being, you don't want things to go poorly for him just based off of that.
Well, yeah.
At the same time, he's the type of person who almost seemed to embrace being the villain on a lot of these things. Like you mentioned, the short temper, the quick to toss guys, whatever it may be. He didn't exactly do himself any favors when it come to making some of those poor calls. There was no humility. He was very confrontational, not apologetic at all about anything after the fact, just very stubborn and stoic. And, the game's better off without him. And again, you don't want to celebrate the downfall necessarily of anybody, but the fact that Major League Baseball went to Angel Hernandez and basically said, "Hey, my man, it's time to take the severance package and walk away."
Go.
And it's like, please. And whatever that number ended up being, Angel Hernandez finally said the same thing, that it was time to go. And I guess it's a win-win for everybody. He claims he gets to spend more time with his family, and that makes him happy. I'm guessing his pockets got lined a good amount, so that also makes him happy. Major League Baseball gets rid of the headache of having him, I'm sure numerous reports from players, managers, you name it, whatever, and just hearing all of the nonsense surrounding him. And then fans. Obviously, fans win from no longer having to deal with blown calls for your teams in whatever spot it may be. Because it gets frustrating when you sit down to watch a game, or you're watching a game and you notice something go. Because I don't know how many times I did that over the years, where it's like, you missed the very beginning of the game, and when you sit down to watch a game, your focus isn't on the umpire and crew to begin with, anyways. But if you notice a couple of bad calls and you're just sitting there like, wait a minute, who's the umpire tonight? And there's a short list of guys that it can be, and end up being Angel Hernandez a lot of the time.
And you just sit there and just go, shit, I'm in front of him.
Right. So this is going to be one of those games.
Here we go. He's behind the plate. I mean, the dude was like, he's almost the sole reason why, we're headed towards robot umps. And it's like, you cannot be that freaking bad. And it's the dude just, I mean, he is. And, but like you said, in terms of, the human being part, like that has to suck, reading and hearing all the shit talked about you. But again, like you said, he's that type of guy that doesn't, like, he's going to take it on, right, square on, and not give a single shit about it, which is incredible. But he's going to fire back and make it worse. And that's just how he is. Like you said, like incredibly confrontational. Again, like you said, against guys like Kyle Schwarber, who literally, when he lost it last year, was one of the best things I had seen from a player with an umpire, in many, many, many years. I mean, he came unhinged, and it's like rightfully so, because, when you have a guy, like that, lose it. I mean, again, that tells you, hey, like there's definitely something up with this. And, Schwarber was certainly, I would say he was certainly right in his actions. And I would say they were pretty justified for, the situation who he was, up against on that one. So,
needless to say, Angel Hernandez, we bid thee farewell. You will not be missed. And because of your actions, as you mentioned, we are one step closer to robotic umps. No matter how far away Rob tells us the technology is, we all know that that's what's coming down the barrel. And for people like me, because I don't think we've ever talked about it on this show, our stances on that, you are less of a fan of the robot umps than I am. I am like full steam ahead on getting rid of whatever fallacies we can, as many as we can. And I understand that there's still going to be humans involved in all of the calls on some level. And I'm not about getting that. I'm just about getting more calls right than wrong. So if that means that we have to get robot umps, then that's what I've been moving towards. So,
well, I think not to get, we can touch on this on another show, but like, I think in terms of that, what I love about the umpire, the actual human element of it behind the plate, is the way it changes the game and the perspective from a pitcher. Like it forces pitchers, like, okay, for example, like, Greg Maddux. Imagine what Greg Maddux would have looked like with robot umps. You see what I'm saying? Like the way he pitched, in terms of, okay, you got a certain umpire strike zone on that day. Like, okay, once you know what it is, boom, you adjust to it. You see what I'm saying? So like, we'll get into it more, but this is just kind of like, very broad brush on this part. But what I like is the human element with the different strike zones. I like
Right.
outside of
I understand, like, because again, it's not like
when you're that damn bad. Oh my god, that's
right.
That's a whole different, like the way those guys were. It's completely him and C.V. Buckner again are hands down the two worst. And you see that, and it's like Jesus, like we can't have that.
Right. And I guess for me, as much as I enjoy the human element of like I want the calls to be right so that a strike is a strike is a strike, and you don't have to guess every game, every umpire and crew, whatever it may be. So yes, while it was part of the game, or it's always been part of the game, that you're kind of manipulating, if you're the starting pitcher or even the hitter, you're kind of manipulating the ump to do certain things or make certain calls based on previous things that you've done, previous things in game, past games, whatever it may be, and having a relationship with that umpire. Like, I don't want that to affect the games when you're talking about how much money's involved and how much is at stake with a lot of these things. If we're just talking about having umpires for just regular old games, that's fine. But when you're talking about the pros and wanting to make sure that every single thing is right, when now with gambling involved on it, I don't even gamble. But the fact that you're sitting there throwing a bunch of money and you got people putting money on some of these games and these moments, only to have things get blown off because of a guy like Angel Hernandez or a blown call where everybody can see it. You see it on replay. You see it, on live on TV when you're watching, whatever it may be. We have the technology to view and see, oh, hey, that was a strike or that wasn't a strike. But the guy with the authority calls it something else, and there's no checks or balances on that. Like, I've just kind of moved past that. It's gotten to the point where it's too frustrating for me to endure, and enjoying that part of the game isn't enough for me to overlook the blunders that come with it.
This new age bullshit that you're coming into, I'm not a fan of this at all, dude. Like, I mean,
I know. I'm usually old man with my takes, so it's not often that I'm very like progressive with it. Like I would much rather keep things the same, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, but I'm not liking this.
About it's like replay. They introduce replay and then they put these limitations on it. And how many times have we seen where it's like, okay, well, this is something clearly cut where a guy's safe or an out or whatever it may be. They go and check it. It takes 15, 20 minutes and New York's looking at it. And then they're like, well, we're going to go with the original call because it was inconclusive. I mean, just for me, it's like, just don't invite the technology in at all unless you're going to do it all the way. Like, we can't have replay and not have robo-umps and vice versa. Like,
no, you can.
Calls right.
You totally can.
Well, yes, you can, but you shouldn't. Get them all right or get none of them right. That's what I want.
I mean,
it's just chaos. I want all or nothing proposition, damn it.
I mean, okay, I respect it.
I want to get a Big Mac around the corner and then go across the world and get a Big Mac and know that those motherfuckers taste the same. That's the equivalency that I want.
Okay, I mean, fair enough. Like, okay. I get it. I mean,
yeah.
We'll get into it in another show because it's, I mean, like I said, it's going to happen. We're obviously, heading in that direction here, but, we'll discuss it more in tune and depth down the road.
Matt Barr says he doesn't care how pitchers were throwing in 1987. We have the technology. I want the right calls. Although it's funny because he says that. My first thought was 1987 isn't even that long ago. Like, I know. We don't care how pitchers were throwing in like 1903 or anything like that. Rex saying that he thinks it would be better just to do pure motion capture instead of a robot. I mean, again, if it gets the calls right, that's fine. And Mike saying, what's more old man, being anti-DH or being pro-human element in umpiring? Which is funny because I am very anti-DH. And that is very super old man. I'm all about 9-on-9. You gotta have the pitchers batting, damn it. Like, take it back to that. No, don't get me wrong. I've come around on the DH and I'm fine with it. But I fought the good fight for the longest time. I said the Braves won the last true pure World Series because it was the last one that had the DH.
Had the DH, yeah.
Or had the
the pitchers batting, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I'm one. I was never anti, I didn't mind the DH, especially when my team would, see the pitcher come up in a crucial situation and strike out, and I'm like, well, damn it, now I want the DH. But overall, I like it. I think it adds a lot more.
Well, and I think I was spoiled growing up. The trio of Maddox, Glavine, and Smoltz could hold their own with a bat.
Dudes can hit, man.
So right? I mean, it's not like they were raking or anything, or were anything close to what a DH would be. But knowing that they could do it, and I always admired that. I'm like, why shouldn't pitchers, go up there and hit for themselves and everything? But again, I get it. DH makes it much more exciting. The pitcher at bats, because they don't spend much time doing it, we're very woeful, and it's mostly a lot of automatic outs. But I would say that it's more old man to be anti-DH than it is to be pro-human. I think, I get the bigger. I get the yeah. Of course you would, because it makes me the bigger old man, which is fine. It's fine. I fully embrace it. I'm good.
Yeah, especially because I'm older than you are. So there's that.
Which makes it funnier.
Exactly.
Matt Barr pointing out that he was there for Big Sexy's only career home run. Big Sexy, of course, for those of you who don't know who Big Sexy is. I mean come on.
How could you not? Yeah. Only career home run.
Bartolo Colon with his career home run in San Diego. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of those ones that you've seen a billion times too, because of it being the only one he ever hit. But he says that was the best energy he ever felt at a stadium, for what it's worth. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, those exciting moments when pitchers do something with the bat, it's hard to compare that, or even better, when the look a pitcher would give when an opposing pitcher would do something off of them in a big moment. There's nothing like it's like, okay, you get that second out on the eighth batter, and here comes the pitcher. Pitcher thinks he's out of it. Runners on first and third, and Maddox smokes a single, and all of a sudden there's another run given up, and the pitcher on the mound gets so pissed. But it's like, hey man, that's baseball. They're playing the game too. They should, and you got to be able to get everybody out. So
yeah, dude, I freaking love it. It's just to me, it added so much more to the game. I mean,
that's not even to say the double switches and all that other stuff. There was a lot of strategy involved. It wasn't just, oh, hey, I want to see a sacrifice bunt, or those occasional moments where pitchers do something with bat. I think the strategy involved in the not having the DH also is a big part of baseball that I enjoy. So
yeah, I'm 1,000% with you. Well, let's move on to the next topic, which is finally the Negro League stats are now fully recognized by Major League Baseball, and that was announced. When was
Tuesday? It was
Tuesday, it was Tuesday,
right? I think it was fully integrated Wednesday, and they are doing something later this summer, I believe in July. Maybe it's July or early August, where there's some type of game that they're doing to honor it, and they're going to do a big blowout celebration for it. But yes, as of right now, things have been updated for the Major League record books.
And there's still going to be more updating to go, because I know they had to, as more box scores are found and updated and everything like that, they will be, the stats will be fully up, updated and everything like that. Just a huge, oh man, I got something, damn, I think a bug full of my eye. Shit. Oh,
I brought tears to my eyes too, Chris.
Man.
Finally, Negro League players being recognized statistically brought tears to my eyes as well.
Got me all emotional too, man. Damn. God. I'm sitting there, I'm trying to fight through it. I'm like, some damn South Carolina bug smoked me in the face, man. I'm in my room. What the hell, man? Jesus. Woo. No, but I mean, in all seriousness, though, it's obviously a huge development, and you name the show, Suck It Cobb, which is hysterical. Which I had to ask you first. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's where he was leaning on it, but I was like, I had to confirm. But now you're giving guys like Josh Gibson and Satchel Paige, I would say the two most well-known Negro League players, they're due. I mean, because we were talking pre-show here, man. the people upset about, which is to me absolutely and utterly ridiculous. But what I tell you, I said they just don't understand baseball.
Right.
The Negro Leagues, and I've said it, like, we talked about it post show and pre show, like it's all the time. Like, the Negro Leagues were unbelievable, and you just watch some of the stuff and just look at the stats. There were some flat out dudes that played in that league, and finally they're getting their due. And imagine what had baseball been integrated before, prior to that. I mean, just imagine what it would have been like. I mean, just the game obviously would have been a lot better off. But again, these guys are finally getting their due, and it's awesome. And I couldn't be any happier for all involved, because it only benefits baseball, period, plain and simple.
Yeah, and we talked about, you mentioned Josh Gibson, and really he was the biggest benefactor of this. He becomes the career batting average leader, and as alluding to the name of the episode, "Suck It, Cobb," because he passes Ty Cobb, going in to the top with his 372 batting average, passing Cobb's 367 batting average. Those of you don't know, but baseball fans generally do know, that Cobb was a noted racist. So the idea that the opening of this, of the stats to getting integrated into the league and it resulting in Ty Cobb getting passed by a black man is utterly hysterical. And we were talking about it pre-show as well, that, Cobb's family, many times removed, obviously, or have come out and said they're happy that this has happened. There's no animosity. I want to make it very clear that Josh Gibson and everybody else involved has their place in baseball history, and that they're glad that these stats have been included. But there's been a lot of backlash from people who try to throw out the false equivalency of wanting to throw in other leagues and other stats and trying to compare, when there really is no comparison. That the fact that the Negro Leagues existed was only because they weren't allowed to play in Major League Baseball. Exactly. And had they been allowed to, then, like Chris mentioned, the stat book would look even different now, because while it's about 75%, because the whole thing took about, it's taken this long to integrate all these stats, obviously. Yeah. But this is a project that's been being worked on behind the scenes for like the last 4 years. And they only have 75% of the information that they really need to complete the whole thing, just to get the stats that they have. They said that there's, still a good 25% of things out there that, based on newspaper articles and word of mouth, and just like, because obviously the Negro Leagues didn't have as good record keeping and stat keeping as Major League Baseball, and a lot of that stuff just got lost through time and whatnot. So the fact that they were able to cobble together what they have cobbled together, you mentioned it, it's still ongoing. It's like some of these things could still change because they've said, if they can find more box scores and they can corroborate it, because Major League Baseball needs 2 different sources to make sure that to cobble together the validity of whatever statistics that they're going to change, to make sure that when they add it to the record book, it's not just one thing or anything like that. So, there's still some things out there that can be done, but kudos to Major League Baseball for doing this. It was a big day. There's been plenty of jokes about, you're talking about Angel Hernandez. We joked last week on Craft Root Sports that maybe the announcement of Angel Hernandez was being pushed by Major League Baseball and getting it because they knew that they were also going to announce this, and that it wouldn't look as bad if they're like pushing Angel Hernandez out the door, but they're like, but hey, we're giving black people more variety.
I mean, hey, you got to do it.
Well, especially when you consider the fact that Angel Hernandez sued Major League Baseball for saying that they were, he's being discriminated against.
God, yeah.
The timing, while hilarious, we don't think there's any real coincidence. It just, happened to be that those things happen back to back. But it's really big news for baseball. Like I said, really for baseball fans moving forward, and those who don't know, because you and I are so deep in this, and we have that history. And I will admit my Negro League knowledge is very lacking. I know a little bit. I probably know about 1% of what I should know. And a lot of the things are just surface level, just stats and, some of the stories and stuff. And I've seen a few of the highlights and videos here and there, but, I should really look more into it. But that's what something like this does is when future generations or future baseball fans are looking at these numbers and they see these names, there's the story or there's a reason to go and look up whoever that name is. And now that being Josh Gibson at the top of these other things. And it's like, it even moved Barry Bonds down off a couple of the top of these lists. So it's not just like racists like Ty Cobb who lost their top spot. You have other black people who I'm guaranteeing you the reaction that the Cobb family gave was probably the opposite that Barry gave somewhere. Barry was probably somewhere like, these black sons of bitches passed me. That's some bullshit.
It is. I mean, the funny part is it couldn't have happened. Like, it couldn't have been more ironic. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is the funny part of all of it. It's just like, but again, these guys finally get their due. And you said it perfect. Like, we, as deep as we are into the game of baseball, period, I don't know jack squat about the Negro Leagues outside of just this stuff and I think MLB Network Radio does a really good job too of the Black Diamonds podcast that Bob Kendrick, who's the president of the Negro League Museum in Kansas City, he does a podcast, and the stories that Bob has, I'm telling you, are simply incredible. And those are so outside of hearing a couple of those and seeing, like, I've seen, like, same thing you were talking about with the highlights and stuff like that, and just the stats overall, I don't know nearly what I should know in terms of, of the league period, based off of, just the outside and just the top stuff. And again, it's perfect for the game of baseball. It's only making the game better. And again, it's giving guys that deserve all the credit in the world, and they're finally getting it. And it sounds like it is an absolute party outside right now. Can you hear it at all?
I was going to say, I hear just a little bit of it.
I mean, there's like 30 people in the pool right now, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, I'm trying to look outside, like, oh.
Well, like Black History Month, we were going to keep this episode shorter in honor of the announcement.
Dang,
that's why I took you off camera to make that joke, man. We don't want to keep you from your vacation.
Oh no, I'm good for a little longer. It's all good.
Well, no. But I mean, just in general, we're not going to go as long as we usually would. But as far as the Negro League statistics being added, anybody who wants to know that, yes, but I think a part of the brushback too, and then the pushback from some people who think, well, why are they doing this now, or this is pandering, or whatever excuse that they may have concocted in their own head to justify why they don't think that this should have happened. I mean, problem is, even for me, sometimes you hear some of the stories about the Negro Leagues, like when Bob Kendrick is telling some of these stories and you hear some of these stats and some of these feats and these moments that happen in these games, they sound cartoonish. Like they legit sound like, how could that have happened? Or there's no way that, Josh Gibson was able to do this, or whoever it may be when he's telling these stories about these guys. And you see some of these stats, like, they're so insane that you can't kind of wrap your head around them. And I think that's part of it, right? Like, you see some of these numbers and you're like, well, they're so much better than the league I'm used to and the league I know. Like, imagine if all of a sudden there was another league that outside of these leagues that would the same thing, where it was just like, oh, well, we're going to do this. And we're just like, well, wait a minute. We don't know anything about this league, or we've never been introduced to this. Like, no. Just trust us. Everything about this league was better, but you just have to trust us. Like, I do think that there's a lot of it's just a lot of ignorance. Like, you don't know, you've only heard about it. You assume that it was a lesser league because it doesn't have the Major League Baseball seal of approval sanction on it until way later on. And so I kind of get it. But again, that's where people need to, move into educating themselves and
Yeah.
finding out more about the history of the game and the history of these leagues that are now a part of Major League Baseball.
I mean, because let's be real. If it wasn't for the Negro Leagues, this game that we love right now is not even remotely close to what it is. And
No, it really isn't.
Plain and simple. And it is, again, like you were saying with the stories, Bob Kendrick. I mean, like, the one that sticks in my head is the one you were talking about, Satchel Paige, when they were playing. I want to say it was it was an all-star team from the Coors Brewery or something like that, and they were chirping from the dugout or whatever, and the dude gets a hit off Satchel Paige or whatever, and the guy, calls him. He says a couple of things there, and Satchel looks back at one of the players, and he's like, "Hey, bring him in." And a couple of the guys are like, "Okay," but he ends up bringing the entire freaking infield and outfield huddled around the pitcher's mound, and he struck out the next 3 batters in a total of 9 pitches. Like, that's just, it's like that kind of stuff there. And it's like, those are the stories that you hear. And it's like, holy shit, that cannot be real. But It was. And that's the really cool part about it. And it's stuff like that, that lives in the folklore of that league, that imagine what Major League Baseball would be like had those guys been integrated in prior. And that's what it's like, baseball is obviously much better off now than what it was obviously back then. That's the most obvious statement you're ever going to hear. But, what could have been had, we saw these guys playing against Major League talent prior, and vice versa, because, some of those dudes, I'm telling you, wouldn't have the stats they would had they been facing Josh Gibson or even
right.
Page. Like, it's
I think that's the most unfortunate part is, even with the stats included, we are,
we're robbed of those matchups.
Right. We're denied the matchups for on both sides for both the Negro League players and the Major League Baseball players to prove themselves against each other. And that those guys, being the competitors that they were, would have loved to have that opportunity, even if it was for the wrong reasons in some of the cases than the Major League players, to say, well, I'm better than this black player. Well, you never got a chance to prove it, even if you believed that, and it may have very well been true, but we were denied the fact that it never got to be. So that's
never got a chance to put your money where your mouth was, and that sucks. But
and I know that baseball is very numbers and history based, more so than any other sport, and we all hold a lot of things sacred in baseball. But it's okay. It's going to be all right. Like, this doesn't change the legacy of, that's the thing. Like, even if Ty Cobb got knocked down, I think it doesn't change how you should feel about Ty Cobb as a baseball player. Ty Cobb is still one of the greatest baseball players of all time.
Bingo.
It doesn't mean that Josh Gibson, somehow overshadows him to where we will never talk about Ty Cobb ever again or anything like that. I mean, that's what people really got to realize, is that no matter what, this is just acknowledging that, hey, these players also played the game. They had these statistics, and here's where they rank amongst their peers. Period. That's
exactly.
It does not have to change how you feel about those guys.
Bingo. That couldn't have been any, better said. I mean, that is so true. And it's just like, I think that's what a lot of people, the ignorance of it is just like, man, they think that, it's changing the entire landscape of baseball. And it's like, no, you're just, you're adding dudes that were unbelievable. They are getting the credit they deserve during their careers.
And to put a bow on the whole thing, if you want to make both sides feel better, or if there's any type of, bitterness or animosity, both sides can go to sleep knowing that neither side would be able to compete in today's game. Like, black, white, no matter what, the players from those eras would not be able to compete in today's baseball game. So there's that. Like, you can know that you would equal opportunity suck in today's baseball.
Yes.
So you've got that going for you.
Paul Skeens pumping it in there against Babe Ruth's fat ass. Like, I want to see this. Please. please, man. Like, God.
Right.
Oh,
Like, I'm sure Josh Gibson had a ton of home runs, but of guys throwing, 60 to 80 miles an hour, I don't know. I mean,
know.
don't get me wrong, the numbers are impressive, but I want to see it against today's guys. That'd prove me something. Like, if Josh Gibson was still hitting dingers at the rate he was then I think we have an argument about
off of a healthy Jacob DeGrom. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's see it. I mean, just saying. Oh, I love it. That is so true, man. That is so true.
Well, I think I think we've given that its dues.
Yeah,
but it's great for baseball. It's great for the Negro Leagues, and there's nothing bad that comes out of the whole situation.
It's all good. It benefits the game of baseball. Period. Plain and simple.
Rex Million saying Ty who?
Man, he's already forgotten. He's already forgotten. Oh, man.
Oh, man. Did you have anything else that you wanted to get into about what's currently going on in the game? You and I discussed how slow of a week it's kind of been, and college, the playoffs and the conference tournaments and the World Series is all ramped up, which means we're right on the heels of draft season on top of that. So, I mean, the draft is in what 3 weeks? It's at the end of June, isn't it?
I'm trying to think exactly when it is.
No, they pushed it back. They started pushing it back. It's just before the All-Star game.
Yeah, All-Star break. Yeah. Which I am, in all seriousness, I am trying to work on maybe a guest or two for to discuss the Major League Draft in terms of like some of the top prospects and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, if you get a chance to watch. Any of the regionals, because now tonight is the last. It's the last night of the NCAA regionals. Right now, it's LSU, North Carolina, two teams that are, defending national champion LSU is now took the lead in Chapel Hill. They're facing, I want to say maybe the top part of North Carolina's lineup, but it's there's been some surprises. Florida, if you heard the NCAA podcast that I did on Selection Monday, Florida, I said never should have made it in the tournament. Well, they went down to Oklahoma State and won that damn regional today. Because, what do I know? I mean, it's awesome. And now we've got so like I said, after tonight, then we got the Super Regionals next weekend. Evansville, University of Evansville, advanced to their first ever Super Regional. With Wes Carroll at the head coach. He's the brother of Jamie Carroll. If you guys remember Jamie Carroll, former Major League player as well. But there's, this is the best time of the year because you're really ramping up right now with the, with the NCAA tournament, and there's guys that we are getting a chance to see on the big stage. So Oregon State. They are, they advanced to the Super Regionals. Travis Bazzana, who is he very well could go 1-1 this year. Going into the season, he was one of the guys that projected to be top 1 or 2 pick. He's in the Super Regionals. You have Charlie Condon, who I've talked about before. Jack Caglianone, who is now, like I said, him in Florida. They shouldn't have been in the tournament. Well, there they are. They're in a Super Regional. J.J. Weatherholt. From West Virginia, he was a projected top pick. They're in a Super Regional, so this is like the best time. Like I said, now I've got it on right now. LSU, North Carolina, Tommy Tanks with. Oh, there we go. We got a base hit to start off top of the 9th. Oh wait, May's going for 2. Oh, there we go, and he's safe. Here we go. North Carolina tying run on second base here in the top of the 9th. Here we go. But it's stuff like that, that we get to see these guys that I'm telling you that you're going to see in the major leagues here in the next year or two. They're featuring here in the Super Regionals that are going to be coming up this coming weekend. So make sure you check it out. It is well worth it. NCAA baseball is phenomenal. With that being said, I have to give a huge shout out to my NKU Norse. Man, proud alum, Dizzy Payton and the guys. I was there, or Dizzy was there. He was a player when I was at NKU as well. Great dude, deserves all the credit in the world for what he's done with that program. and major props to NKU. Fortunately, they had to go and they had to face the top team in the country, Tennessee, and but they held their own. So I got to give them all the credit in the world. But again, it was the best time of the year. So NCAA tournament, we're in the middle of major league season, and again, this is it's awesome. So make sure you guys check it out. I'm trying to get you more involved in college baseball as well. And I know you kind of.
It's so funny. I was gonna say it's like I dabble in and out. Like there was a time probably right after college where I was really into it, then kind of fell out of it, and then usually about this time when things are wrapping up and draft season is like quickly approaching, I get back into it just so I can start matching up names and players' faces and whatnot. That's like the only reason, because you get to the draft and most of the time there's a lot of these high school kids that you've never seen for sure, but even the college kids, if you haven't seen any of these things, it's like who. So I want to know some of this. So like even leading up to last year, I want to say I think January or maybe start of the season, February, somewhere around there, was the first time I ever heard the name Paul Skeens. And it was kind of like one of those things where it didn't really crescendo until the draft, but it was like that steady build up where like I know the name, but like could kind of remember. And then, oh yeah, the dude with the stash, I think he plays for LSU until finally, like, finally gets there. And so like, that's how my college baseball finally is, that it's to where it's just like, I know who some of the guys are at the very top, but I don't come on until very late in the party. So, but college baseball is awesome. I wish I just had more time for it. I barely have enough time to watch Major League Baseball. I know,
and I've gotten to the point, especially like now, like I've kind of neglected. I'll be the first to admit it, and it's probably bad here on this show, but I've neglected Major League Baseball to a certain point because I am all about. Oh man, what a hell of! Oh no way. That's a bullshit. That was a great bunt. Oh my lord! Oh, dude, come on,
horned up off a bunt,
dude. Alex Madera from North Carolina just bunted this ball straight down the third base line, and Tommy Tanks goes to field it. And how the hell that didn't hit the bag? Dude, it is unbelievable. How? Okay, now they're showing the replay. This is unbelievable.
You're a baseball fan when you get excited about the execution of a perfect bunt.
Oh. Dude, it just missed it. Oh, my God. Oh, dude, that is insane. Off of a bunt. But
it's Christmas in June.
It is. This is, like I said, this is why this is the best time of the year. And again, come hell or high water, I'm going to get you more involved in college baseball.
It's fine. It's fine because I love ball. Right. Like, it's not like again, the only thing standing in my way is time. That's it.
And the beauty of like a lot of this stuff's on ESPN Plus too, which is what I love because they show so many different conferences.
Yeah, I'm not worried about where it is. I'll find it. Arg, matey. One way or the other, I can find whatever match
I will get it. Yeah, no doubt. I love it.
It's like, oh, ESPN Plus. Yeah, I don't have that, but I'll still watch it.
I'll give you my account if I have to. I don't give a shit. We're all in on this, man. But yeah, when it comes to, like I said, when it comes to the draft coming up, like I said, I'm working on a couple of guests. So hopefully it'll work out to where we can get some of these guys on to talk the draft, because again, there's some, familiarize yourself with some of these players, because like I said, and we had talked about it, countless times on the show on previous episodes of how quickly these guys develop and move into the majors. And
that's why I think I need that's a lot of why I got more into college baseball shortly after college was because of the time that gap closing, and now it's gotten smaller than ever, where there is like it wasn't often that you get a Strasburg or a Skeens or whatever, and it's still not very often, but you do have, I would say, the top half of the first round within the first 2 years. And hell, if you're the Angels, they don't give a shit. They called up Zach Neto.
I know.
And he was a bottom half first round guy. So, the league has changed. The team's mentality about bringing guys up and getting them thrown in there has changed. So, it's probably the most exciting time to watch college baseball just because of those guys turning around and being names with Wyatt Langford. I mean,
exactly.
Nobody knowing who Wyatt Langford was if you're not tuned into college like that.
Yeah. So. And this is, like I said, these next 2 weeks, well, hell, next 3 weeks, because like I said, you got Super Regionals, then following that is obviously the College World Series. And that's, again, there is, there's so much to look forward to. I mean, so again, familiarize yourself with, with some of these names, because like I said, you're going to see them here, in the next couple, I'd say next year or two, you're going to see a lot of these players, especially in the top half of this draft. They're going to be gracing your TV screens on, in the majors here relatively quickly. And that's awesome. So absolutely freaking love it. Again, this is the best time of the year.
I was just going to say, good baseball all the way around. Well,
yes.
We are going to let Chris get back to his vacation and in the margaritas, most importantly.
Yes.
This has been another episode of Backwards K Baseball. Y'all, thank you very much for tuning in with us. We appreciate y'all checking us out. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on the Impact Sports Cincinnati Network, the Craft Brewed Sports Network, and wherever you find all of your fine podcasts, and on YouTube. We appreciate. Go, Chris.
I was going to say real quick. I have one shout out I want to say real quick.
Slide it in, baby.
Congrats to Zion Theophilus from Moeller High School, was named today the Gatorade Ohio Player of the Year. If you get a chance, watch anything you can on Zion. This kid is an absolute freaking stud. He's a good dude. I've had a chance to meet him over the last year. Phenomenal kid. He's an LSU commit. He's only a junior. Kid touches 95, 96, 97 at Moeller. Kid is a freaking stud. Works his bag off all the time. Well-deserved, so I want to give him a shout-out. So congrats, Zion. You deserve it, man. And I cannot wait to see what you have coming for you down the line as well. So real quick one to get that in. And also to Jake Hanley, who was also named Ohio Player of the Year from Mason. So Jake is a really good kid as well, committed to Indiana. So want to give a shout out to those two guys right there. Well-deserved on their recognition. So
congratulations, gentlemen.
Yes.
Appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll catch y'all next week. Thanks again.
Yes.
Peace.